Hey, it's been a while since I've made a video, and so I just wanted to share a few testimonies of what God has done for me. Um, a lot has happened since I last made a video. Um, One of the biggest things that happened um, is that my church burned down on Thanksgiving of 2020. I'm making it seem like it was a long time ago, it was last year, 2024. The building burned down on Thanksgiving, and it's actually a miracle because nobody was hurt and nobody died. Um, my church usually has services Thursdays in the evening at 7:30, and that day we didn't have service, which is pretty rare. Um, that was the first Thursday that since I joined the church that we didn't have service, and um, there was a Thanksgiving meal earlier that day in the afternoon, and I went to that because I don't have a lot of family in the state. So ever since I've joined the church, ever since I moved to Georgia, that's been where I have Thanksgiving at. So that was my third Thanksgiving with the church, I believe. My second or my third Thanksgiving with the church in Georgia. And so we were there, we were in fellowship, we went home, and at the time, one of my best friends at the church was living with me, her and her mom. And one of the things that I like to do is I love to go pray at the church. That's like one of my favorite places to be, or it was one of my favorite places to be. And there were many times I loved when my roommate lived with me, or when my friend lived with me, and we're still friends to this day. Nothing bad happened. She just had to move out, or they made the decision to move out, and I respected that. But one of the things that I loved to do was, it was just funny. Like, we would get ready to go to bed, and um, and then like I would just feel like God called me to go pray, and so I would say, "Hey, do you want to go with me to the church?" And we would just like pack our stuff and drive 20 minutes to the church and just go pray. Sometimes at 10 o'clock at night, sometimes at 9 o'clock at night, sometimes maybe once at 11 o'clock at night. We would just do it, and it was amazing. And we had that freedom, um, because I had the key, not the key, but like a fob that to go into the church. And so it was great. Like, those were really good times, and I miss them now because I don't have a church building anymore. Um, but that day, we were gonna go pray. I think like around 7, um, and me, her, and her mom were hanging out in our room, and we were just chilling. And we were like, "Hey, we should go pray." But we just kept talking, and normally we would like get ready within like 5 minutes and be out of the house, but we just took longer for some reason. Um, and we didn't end up getting there until like 9:45 or like close to 10 o'clock. Mind you, we planned to go pray like at 6 or like 6:30 or 7, but it just kept being delayed. And so we drive to the church, me, her, and her mom, and I still remember it. There there's a hill, and and we drove up the hill, and it was night. It was close to 10 o'clock at night, and I saw smoke in the air, and I was like, "Oh wow, somebody's house is on fire." Um, and I don't know. I just remember like just like a small. As I kept driving up the hill, I just felt like a small, like eerie feeling, and then we get closer to the top. It's kind of like this. You go up, and then you go up a little more. So as we got up, I saw that it was coming from our church, and I saw smoke. We drove through like a thick cloud of smoke, It was like white smoke. And we saw like a young man running down, and I was like, gosh, what's it like? And we drove through the smoke, and it was our building. We could see we could hear the fire alarms going off, and we could see like lights flashing in the classrooms um, of the church. And we get to the top of the hill, and the parking lot is empty because it's Thanksgiving. And instead of parking right by the front where I normally do, I just kept driving, and I parked in near the back. And um, we were obviously shocked. We didn't see fire; we just saw smoke, a lot of smoke, and then within like 10 seconds, the fire trucks start pulling up, and and then some cars also pulled up as well right after us, um, and we were in shock, obviously, and um, we we didn't know what to do. Obviously, we couldn't go inside. We weren't gonna go home either. We were just like, "What's going on?" Um, and yeah, I mean, I could go on telling that story. I mean, obviously, it was very, very frightening and sad and tragic. But I do want to say that I'm thankful to God because nobody got hurt, nobody was injured. Um, I believe two or three church members were in the building, but they managed to escape. And I wanted to thank God for keeping his hand upon our church and for keeping everybody safe. Um, because, yes, the church is what I learned from that, you know, um, which I guess I kind of knew it before, but I'm still new to the church, so, or I'm still relatively new. I've been in the church less than 3 years, so I learned from that experience. It's that the church is not the building per se, but it's the people, it's the body of Christ that make up the church. But I didn't really know that before that experience, because I had associated the church a lot with the building, which, that's reasonable. Um, but it's not. Anyways, I had to like come to terms with all of that because my definition of the church basically kind of shifted after that because we didn't have a building anymore. But just because we didn't have a building doesn't mean that we don't have a church. But I had to really, I was affected in that matter. That manner, I had to really think about some things. And But I wanted to thank God for keeping us safe, and for me in particular, like me and my friends, we were supposed to be in the building earlier. We were gonna pray, and we were supposed to be there earlier. We could have been in the building when that happened, um, and I'm thankful that we weren't. So it's by the grace of God. We were delayed, um, and that could have saved our lives, and so I'm very thankful for that. And I also wanted to thank God. Another testimony I have is that me and my father and my brother were looking for an apartment um, in the fall of last year, and we struggled so hard. Like, we were looking for months, and everything was so expensive, and everything was out of our budget. And um, I mean, you guys, I don't know if you've seen any of my other videos, but in one of my videos, I talk about how, like, my finances are not that good. And so, like, I really needed help, especially. Like, I was the one who really, really, really needed us to get, like, the lowest possible price on housing without it being, like, infested by, like, roaches and rats and all that. Um, and and God really worked a miracle for us. We found a beautiful place to live, and the price is nothing that I could have even asked for. Nothing that I could have even asked for. Nothing that I could have imagined. And and it's a beautiful place in a beautiful neighborhood. and um, and I was praying for months. I even started praying the year before. I don't even know when I think I started praying for like a new place around like the beginning of 2024 maybe, and we moved in beginning or middle of 2024, and we moved into the place April 2025. So it was a long time of praying, petitioning God, and asking with faith, um, and a little bit of fasting, not a lot. I don't really like fasting, but a little bit of fasting, a lot of prayer, and just trusting in God and submitting it to God in prayer. And I am a testimony that, when you pray and seek God, and when you pray and fast and seek God, and and submit your needs to Him, cast your burdens on Him, and are faithful to Him, and you tell Him, God, we need this, like we can't do this without you, and um, and you submit specific prayers, God will answer them. Um, I have to look back. I might be able to find it, but I remember, um, and I wrote a specific list. I said, God, help us to find a place that's in a safe neighborhood, a beautiful neighborhood, great neighbors, um, a beautiful home, like a lot of good things. And I kind of was like racking up the items, and I was like, gosh, like, you know, I was like, this is kind of a lot to ask for, but I still asked it. And I remember I asked my dad and our roommates at the time, because they were still living with us. I said, hey, can you help us pray for this? I said, I don't know what God's going to have in store for all of us, but let's ask Him for, let's make a list, and let's ask Him for this, and let's all pray about it. And so we made the list together. We pinned it on top of the fridge, and I asked them to pray for it. And a few months later, God answered that prayer, so I'm very thankful to God. He is faithful, and and I can't thank Him enough for everything that He's done for me and my family and my church these last few months. So yeah, we don't have a building anymore, or at least not right now, but God's gonna lead the way, and He's gonna give us a new building in His timing. And I have a new home now, and I'm so thankful for that. And there's been a lot of change. It has tested my prayer life a little bit, because I always used to pray at the church, and I don't have that anymore. And I always used to pray at my old prayer closet, and I don't have that anymore. That prayer closet was the place where I first learned how to talk to God. It was the place where I first learned how to talk to Him, because that was my first apartment living in Georgia. And I moved in there before I joined the church. I believe I moved in there like 2 or 3 weeks before I first joined the church. And then God taught me how to pray, and He brought me to the prayer closet before I even really knew what of a concept like that, prayer closet. Because you say prayer closet a lot, but a lot of times you're not praying in a specific closet. You might be praying somewhere else, or it's like an allegory or something, or a metaphor. But it was actually my prayer closet. That was actually where I went to pray a lot. And so I had a lot of good memories with God in that closet. Um, and so to leave that apartment, it was a little bittersweet. And now I have to make a new prayer closet in my new room. Um, and so that's what I'm doing. It hasn't been easy because it's like a new environment. Um, but I'm doing it. I can't pray at my church, but I'm still going to pray. And I don't have my old prayer closet, but I'm still going to pray. And I'm thankful that we can talk to God anywhere. We can talk to God in the parking lot. We can talk to God in our car. We can talk to God at Walmart. We can talk to God anywhere. And it's because He's omnipresent. And so I'm very thankful for how He has been faithful um, to His people. And He is faithful. And He'll be there for you too. And He is there for you. And so God wants you to speak to Him and to spend time with Him. And you don't have to overthink it. I remember before I joined the church, there was this thing going on around social media. It was like, if you could have dinner with Jay-Z, what would you ask him? If you could have, I forgot what it was. I think it was like, if you could have 30 minutes of dinner with Jay-Z or something like that, like what would you ask him? And people can think of like a bunch of questions that they would ask him. Well, why do we overthink talking to God? Prayer is a conversation. It's talking to God. And we often overthink prayer, and so we don't do it. We start praying, and then 3 minutes later we can't think of anything and we give up. But just keep pushing. Just talk to God. He is real. And if you could say anything to God, what would you say? Start thinking about that in your mind, and then start speaking it by the words of your lips. So anyways, have a great day, guys. Bye.